Welcome to the third episode of my new series, Madden Training 101, where we'll take an in-depth look at various mechanics, features, and improvements to gameplay and examine how closely they reflect the game of football. Today, we'll be taking a look at forced defenders in a 3-4 cover 3 scheme, their implementation in Madden, and the implications of said implementation on your defensive schemes. Now, what exactly is a forced defender? Who is he, and what are his responsibilities? Well, the forced defender is the player responsible for preventing the ball carrier from reaching the perimeter. He must force the ball carrier inside to the alley or fill defenders. Now, how does the forced defender do this? Well, he does so by defeating blockers on the offensive side of the line of scrimmage as close to a 45-degree angle as possible. This forces the ball carrier to turn inside quicker than he wants to, and also squeezes the lane available to him to run the ball. It is essential that the forced defender attack with his outside shoulder free to maintain outside leverage, thereby pressing the ball carrier to cut inside. Okay, now the question becomes, who is this mysterious forced defender? Well, there's no one umbrella answer. Who the forced defender is dependent on the defensive coverage, the front, and the point of attack. Today, we'll focus specifically on how linebackers attempt to force the ball inside, and in part 2 next week, we'll take a look at how the secondary acts as the forced defender. So let's take a look at how Madden replicates the essential football concept that is the forced defender. In this first play, the Broncos run an outside stretch weak side, while the Steelers run a 3-4 cover 3 sky coverage. In this case, the weak side backer is the forced defender. The strong safety would become the force if the ball was run strong side. But again, we'll take a look at how secondary plays force in next week's video. So the ball is snapped. The backer reads the tackle and attacks into the backfield. He does a great job of maintaining outside leverage. His outside shoulder is free, allowing him to disengage to the outside if necessary. Now, I'd love to see the linebacker attack more at a 45-degree angle to squeeze the alley a bit more, but ultimately, running back Monty Ball is forced to turn back inside, with the result being brought down back at the line of scrimmage. Now, that's just one example. Let's take a look at another. Here, the Broncos run a stretch weak side, and the weak side backer becomes the forced defender. He reads the tackle's down block and pursues hard off the snap. And while he engages the tackle at around a 45-degree angle with his outside shoulder free, he doesn't get enough penetration into the backfield before actually engaging with the lineman. The backer's inability to get a bit more upfield before engaging with the lineman significantly widens the alley between him and the spill defenders, creating a huge hole. Not to mention that the tackle absolutely manhandles the backer, taking him out of the play completely. Still, it's great to see the backer try to maintain that outside leverage when being severely driven off the line. This next example is of the same play, with the weak side backer once again playing force, but with a much different result. Now this time, once the ball is snapped, he engages the tackle head on with no outside leverage. He doesn't have his outside shoulder free, and therefore is unable to force the ball carrier to cut back inside. And as a result, Monty Ball is able to escape the edge and run down the numbers for a big gain. Alright, I got one final clip that I want to show. Now in this play, the Broncos run another outside stretch play, and again with 11 personnel. This time, it's run strong side, and it's the strong side linebacker who's the forced defender. The ball is snapped, and instead of attacking downhill after reading the tight end's down block on the end, the backer waits to be blocked by the receiver. The backer here does two things incorrectly. One, he doesn't charge downhill once he knows it's a run. Two, he simply keeps his shoulder squared and doesn't take an angle to try to keep some sort of outside leverage even after he's been slow to read the play. However, even as out of place as the backer is, once the ball carrier is headed his way, he at least manages to disengage nicely to the outside as opposed to the inside, and manages to track down ball for a gain of 4. So, that's all for this week. From the footage we've looked at, it seems apparent that for the first time in Madden football, linebackers are attempting to force defenders inside on outside run plays. Attempt is the key word though, as the evidence points towards varying degrees of success when linebackers are tasked with being this forced defender. Ultimately, this first iteration of forced defender implementation is a solid foundation that can be expanded upon in future years. Personally, I'd like to see backers get upfield more before engaging with the lineman, which would shrink the alley for the running back and force him to cut back sooner than he'd like. But for now, linebackers do a much better job of preventing backs from reaching the outside. Finally, as for why I'm focusing purely on linebackers as forced defenders as opposed to the secondary, well, they play forced quite differently, and of course that bears some different results. But you'll have to wait till next week to find out what those differences are. Alright, now it's time for my shameless self-promotion segment. If you enjoyed this episode, don't hesitate to check out episodes 1 and 2 at the bottom of your screen, where I take an in-depth look at the wide 9 technique and 2-gap defenders respectively. Also, being an aspiring video game journalist, I'd love for you to check out my in-depth review of Madden NFL 15 and provide feedback. Finally, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for weekly gaming content. Stay tuned next week for part 2 of my Forced Defender mini-series. Until then, take care, and I'm out.